Hi everyone, welcome to SAMA, a program which invites experts each week to discuss a topic from their area of expertise. This week we are delighted to have Dr. Becky Gillaspy to explain to us how to lose weight even after you reach the giddy age of 50 years old. Do you eat to fight off boredom or stress? Are you too busy to make weight loss a priority? And are you self-sabotaging your efforts? Are you tired of trying to make sense of all the advice out there or making the first steps because it all sounds so complicated? Now, Becky, fortunately, knows there's a lot more to losing weight than simply finding a good diet and exercising program. She too has been overweight and out of shape, and she understands why you wish to return to the good weight, but still sometimes have destructive habits and behaviors. Becky graduated in 1991 with a Doctor of Chiropractic degree from Palmer College. She has worked as an on-air health consultant for a local ABC TV affiliate and spent most of her professional career teaching a range of college courses from anatomy to nutrition. She now works full-time helping people reach their health and weight loss goals through her website, drbeckyfitness.com, and her YouTube channel. Becky, welcome to SAMA. It's fantastic to have you with us.
Thank you so much, John. It's nice to be here with you.
Why do people find it so hard to lose weight?
Yes, well, so big question, right?
I always start with the tough ones.
Yeah, let's start broad and narrow down. So there's, I think what we can kind of boil it down to is that we have been taught, and now I'm talking from somebody over the age of 50, which is kind of where we're going to end up our focus, but we can broaden this out to just about anybody. We were brought up with kind of the food pyramid and the idea of, all of the carbs at the bottom, fat and sweets at the top. And so there was some good about that. In an idyllic world, the carbs that we would have chosen would have been our whole carbohydrates, our vegetables, some healthy fruits, things that are intact and have all their fibers and all of their nutrients in there. But what we ended up doing is refining all of those carbohydrates. And the more you refine them, refining is basically like pre-digesting the food, right? So you're breaking it down. So when it goes in you, it takes much less work for your digestive system to break it down. And what that means is it goes into your system very quickly. And that's where we ended up flipping things and started to see that as a society as a whole, we started to gain weight.
So it started off as a good idea because when that pyramid was drafted up, carbohydrates weren't so fattening. Would that be a good summary of what you've said?
That's actually not a bad way to put it. Now we could even go back farther than the pyramid. So the food pyramid, which I think a lot of people are familiar with. It's kind of iconic, at least in the United States it is. Was put in the scene in around 1992. Now we could go back 2 decades earlier than that, where we started our battle against eating dietary fat. So everything became low fat in about the 70s. Right. And if we're in our 50s, we grew up in the 70s, right? So that is when we all started to this war against fat, and everything became low fat. Mm-hmm. The challenge with that was that low fat foods were no longer flavorful. Fat adds a lot of flavor. And so we had to put something into these foods to add flavor. Well, one of the things that we put in was sugar, because sugar is very palatable, right? It really improves the taste of food. So we really, in a matter of a couple of decades, so from the 70s up to like 92, when we released the food pyramid, we had really taken a lot of fat out of our diet, and we had replaced it with carbohydrates, but not the carbohydrates that our body was thriving on. It was the carbohydrates that were high in sugar and refined. And that's what that does then is it really sets off a change in us hormonally. And that hormonal change is what really leads to the weight gain.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm.
Now, we're going to touch on menopause and how it affects how the rules change once you once you start menopause. Now, what are the changes that are so profound that cause weight gain once you hit menopause?
Yeah, so there's a few things, and if we can just go down to the things that are specific to women at menopause.
Yes.
Obviously, we're talking hormones again. So, and the hormone I think that everybody, it springs to the top of your mind when we're looking at menopause is estrogen,
Yes.
and certainly estrogen is one of the criminals in the crime, right? So we after the age of 50, right around 50, when a woman heads into menopause, the average age is 51, but really a woman can start experiencing symptoms of perimenopause even into her into her 30s. So it depends on the woman. But at that time, we're losing estrogen because our ovaries are no longer producing estrogen. Mm. And one of the reasons I think that women at menopause really start to take notice to their weight is because that decrease in estrogen causes a redistribution of the way fat is deposited on your body. So a woman who, for instance, when she was in her 30s or 40s was more pear-shaped, meaning she would put weight on easily in her hips and her thighs, she now will find that the belly fat is what seems to come on, and she notices her waist getting bigger. And so that is one of the things that we really start to take notice. And I think that's when, like a menopause and belly fat, they're such topics for women. It's like, what's going on here? What changed to make me now have a waist when I didn't really have one before?
Yes. It's not just women too. I mean, men don't get menopause, but there's certainly hormonal changes through the years. Mm-hmm. And there's a difference in calorific intake requirements when you're in your early 20s as opposed to your 50s.
Yeah, and yes, and so there's multiple things, right? So we kind of point the finger at estrogen because it's the easy one to point the finger at, because that's one of the major changes that we have. And like I said, it's not an innocent bystander, right? So we have studies where what decreased estrogen will actually cause a decrease in the resting energy expenditure, yes. Meaning that a woman, after she's at menopause, yes. Will not need as many calories to get through her day. So just at rest, your resting energy expenditure has gone down due to this decrease in estrogen.
That's remarkable. Just the difference in hormone levels reduces your resting or your basal energy expenditure. Does that when you're resting, pretty much the only energy you're using is your brain, your breathing, your heart, and heat. So which one of those? I hope it's not the brain.
Which utilizes a lot of energy. So we tend to think that we only burn calories when we hit the gym and we go exercise or we go out for a walk, or that's when we're burning calories. We burn a lot of calories by doing things like thinking, breathing, just walking from one room to the next. Digestion uses a lot of calories. Yes. So these things are continually going on in the body. So
right, but how does a reduction in oxygen also make your body more efficient and all the things you're doing until you hit menopause?
Yeah, so the mechanism behind it is not really well understood, but what it will do is when estrogen goes down, resting energy expenditure goes down, which
Yes.
means that you burn fewer calories at rest.
Okay.
So you're going to be more prone to gain weight because you're not burning as much. So think about a very muscular 25-year-old man, right?
Yeah.
So he has a lot of muscle on his body, which is very metabolically active. It is burning a lot of calories just simply by sitting on his body.
Mm.
Where take then an 80-year-old woman who hasn't been actively engaged in exercise for a decade. She's not going to burn as many calories. You know, if you sit both of them on the couch and you sit them there for the entire day long, this guy's going to burn a lot of calories. This lady is not. So she has a lower resting estrogen, or a
Yeah.
lower resting energy.
Right, right. Now he's going to empty the snake bowl. She'll be still the one that gains weight.
Unfortunately, yeah. So these are the things that we're up against, and you know, John, we've already talked about a lot about hormones, right?
Yes.
We are just really, if you get down to the essence of life, we are bags of hormones, and our hormones control everything. They control when we get hungry. They control when we're satisfied. They control when we get up in the morning, right? So you are at 8:30 a.m. Where you're located in China. I am at 8:30 p.m.
Yes.
in Pennsylvania, in the United States. You and I have much different hormonal cocktails going on in our bodies right now,
Right.
because hormones dictate our resting and our energized times. So.
Is it the pituitary, the thyroid gland that controls these hormones predominantly?
So your thyroid that we think of that as your metabolism.
Yes.
And certainly that plays a role in how many calories that you're going to be able to burn throughout a day.
Yes.
Now, is that specific to a woman in menopause? No. And, you know, not every menopause and thyroid can be completely separate things. You know, a woman could certainly have both of those issues, but they're not necessarily just related.
Right, right. So that's the problem. What's the solution?
Yes, well, you know, so it's really, there's issues that we can't control when we reach menopause. Estrogen being one of them. You know, we are not going to do something outside naturally. We're not going to do something naturally. So there are hormone replacement therapies and things of that sort.
Okay.
But if we're speaking just naturally, we're not going to do something to re-energize the ovaries and get more estrogen produced. But there are some things that we certainly can control. So really, when I speak with somebody who's over the age of 50 and they're lamenting about gaining weight or they want to lose weight, what I say is, you know, you need to disrupt the cycle, and we do that by controlling the things that we can control.
Right.
And so I say the cycle because I'll often talk about menopause producing this perfect storm. You know, so so we get a decrease in estrogen. Well, a decrease in estrogen will also increase belly fat. But belly fat will also encourage something called insulin resistance, which is a problem with our cells won't take in energy because they are resisting insulin resistance. And that causes a couple of things, one of them being weight gain. And I can go into that if you would like me to, but and another thing is that insulin resistance will cause cravings. So here we are, right? So we go into menopause, we have a decrease in estrogen, we have an increase in belly fat. Both of these things are causing an increase in insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is causing weight gain and cravings. So now
a cycle. I'm detecting a cycle here where.
Yeah. So we have this perfect storm.
Terrible.
So, yeah. Well, it is, but it's not something that we can't overcome.
Okay.
Certainly. I mean, we do have some power, and And that's what I was talking about with controlling the things that we can. We disrupt that cycle, we disrupt that perfect storm where we can. And that really has so much to do with choosing the right foods for our body at that time.
Interesting. Okay, what type of foods are they? What foods can you, because when you're hungry, you've got to have something. And so
Yeah.
what do you choose?
Yeah. So one of the things that really turned around, and we started this conversation talking about how our food choices have changed from the 70s to the 90s in the food pyramid and things. And what we find now that we didn't know back then, or didn't have the complete understanding we had back then, is that weight and weight gain and weight loss are hormonally controlled processes in the body. We used to think more along the lines of a calorie is a calorie, right? So it didn't matter where that calorie came from, like a Tootsie Roll or a piece of steak. It didn't matter, right? Those two things would be the fine as long as they were matched on calories. Well, we now know that that's not the case. And the reason we didn't really zero in on that as a problem before is because we didn't understand the hormone insulin. And insulin is certainly something that we can, even after the age of 50, after menopause, we can take control of, and we can start to make changes in our weight. And here's how you do it. And I talk about food choices. So we want to focus our diet on foods that do not spike insulin.
Yes.
And those foods would actually be dietary fats. Do not raise your insulin. Proteins raise it a little bit, and then carbohydrates will raise it the most. Okay. So we want to we want to go back a little bit more and go back into a higher fat diet, which is a terribly scary thing for women, my age or over, to consider, because we grew up in the low fat era.
Right. And so sorry?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, how would you increase your fat intake? Yeah. What sort of foods would you have?
Yeah, so good, because that's what I was. That's right down the same path I was going, John. So fats. So we've got two ends of a spectrum here. So we've got healthy fats, and we've got fats that are not as healthy. So the best thing and the easiest thing to focus on is healthy whole fats. So we have those from both the plant and animal world. So from the plant world, avocados are wonderfully high fat fruits, right? Nuts and olives. We can go into then, if a woman is able to handle dairy, we can go into, there's some cheeses, some yogurts, but a full fat yogurt, not a, here in the United States, we go into the grocery store, and there is literally half of a row of yogurts that are low fat and filled with sugar. Those are not going to be helpful to you. You have to look in that little segment of the aisle where they have the full fat ones with live cultures that are going to help your gut health as well. So yogurt can be a wonderfully nutritious high fat food. You just have to be smart about which one that you're choosing. We can also go then into, there's fatty fish, there's healthy meats that you can go into. So these whole fats.
So let me understand correctly. If you have two yogurts, one of them is low fat, but it doesn't have the sugar added, and one is full fat, again with no sugar. Is the full fat one less likely to add to your belly fat?
You are correct. Did you say full fat with low sugar? Well,
both
would not have high sugar. Yes, that is what I am saying, and this is absolutely backward thinking of how we have been going for the past 50 or 60 years. But if we think about our progress for the past 50 or 60 years, what have we done? Obesity has skyrocketed, right?
Absolutely.
And there is a physiological reason why that high fat yogurt with low sugar, just naturally low sugar, is much better than that low fat yogurt with sugar. And the reason has to do with insulin. It has to do with the effect that it has on that hormone in your body, insulin. So I'm not sure I totally went through that process. So let me do that. Okay.
Sure.
And hopefully this will make it a little bit clearer. And we'll use that yogurt. I think it's a great analogy. So, like I said, one of the things we want to do is control spikes in insulin. We do not want spikes in insulin. The reason is because insulin is a nutrient storing hormone. One of the nutrients it is fat. So it will take, when we eat something that's high in sugar, that goes into our bloodstream and raises our blood sugar. Yes. Now, if anyone has ever had their blood sugar checked, they know that having a high blood sugar level is not a good condition for your body. In fact, it's very inflammatory. Mm-hmm. So your body has mechanisms in place to like a check and balance system, right? So as soon as that blood sugar goes up, it's going to release a hormone called insulin to bring that blood sugar level down. When blood sugar and insulin are high in your body, they are in storage mode. That means that insulin is helping take that blood sugar out of the body and put it into storage in your body. Yes. Somewhere, right? So a little bit can go in your muscles, some of it can stay in your liver, but a lot of it, if there's excess, it's going to go into our big storage closets called our fat cells.
Right.
Yeah. So my point here is, though, when we have sugar and we're eating something high in sugar, insulin comes to the rescue, but insulin is a storing hormone. So if insulin is high, we are making fat. We want to eat foods that are not going to raise insulin. So now let's go to that high-fat yogurt.
Yes.
And we eat that. It has very low sugar. So we eat, that goes into our system. We do not get, it goes, it gets broken down and the nutrients go into our blood, but we do not see the insulin rise when we are digesting that fat. Okay. If insulin isn't going up, we are not driving the nutrients, we're not in storage mode. So when insulin is low, fat can come out of fat storage and be used for energy.
That's totally a paradigm difference to what my parents were taught in the yeah, it's totally different from what we were taught earlier with this food pyramid, carbohydrates with the grains at the bottom.
Yeah.
Wow, that's just a total change. So this is probably one of the greatest reasons why people who are wishing to lose weight, they choose the low-fat products, and they're actually doing their bodies a disservice because their bodies then can't remove the calories from the sugars and other foods that they may be having at the same meal.
Yeah. If we're eating a lot of sugar all throughout the day, we are always in nutrient storage mode, fat storing mode, and we don't have, the fat cells have a one-way door, right? So it's either going in or it's coming out, but it can't be both at the same time. So if we're constantly eating sugar, and not filling up on the fats and things like that, yes, that is kind of that is really the crux of it.
And the foods today are very different from the foods of yesteryear. I don't know whether the food group Oreos was around.
Yeah.
A few decades ago.
I don't believe that was, although I'm sure a lot of people would love for it to be. But
And so there's all these other things now which they taste good, and they make you feel full for a little while anyway. But of course, these are very high in sugars. Your insulin will be high because you're trying to lose weight. So you're thinking, well, I'll do a trade-off. I'll have fat-free yogurt, and then I'll have an Oreo to polish it off. And that's probably the worst thing you can do then, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. But John, I mean, it does truly make sense. And I will tell you, this is really relatively new thinking for me as well.
Yes.
I grew up, when I first started teaching, I taught the food pyramid, and
Yes.
and I will tell you, now some people, if you start young and you eat whole carbohydrates, you're not eating refined carbs, you can do quite well. You certainly can. We're talking about a group of people that have some metabolic, damage that they've done. They're heavier. They're at a stage of their life in menopause where weight gain comes on a little bit easier. So
Yes.
we're talking about a different population here.
Okay, but you're saying damage. Damage isn't permanent damage. When someone's gained the weight, does it make a permanent change in your body's metabolism if someone is, say, quite obese?
Yes.
Ooh,
There's certainly we can take, for instance, insulin resistance.
yes.
So that develops. That is a condition that develops over time.
Yes.
The easiest way to think of insulin resistance is to think of it as pre-diabetes, and really we can use those terms interchangeably. But once a person has diabetes, they can possibly drop back out of that by eating a better diet. But it's always going to influence their ability to lose weight at a certain time. So and part of that is just simply aging. We don't have the strong metabolisms that we once did that bounce back.
That's pretty scary. So you've got to really look after yourself, haven't you? Prepare yourself for the when it becomes.
Yeah, but I don't want it to sound like that there's nothing we can do. We certainly can. I do a lot of YouTube videos. I had just done one recently on losing weight over 60, and like I said, I'm 52, right? So I didn't feel that I could speak, authoritatively on lose weight over 60. So I actually turned to members of my forum that I run, who are, and I have many members over the age of 60. And I simply asked them 3 questions. I said, what do you find harder now that you're over 60 with losing weight as compared to before? What has been successful for you?
Yes.
And what other, what other positive side effects have you had? The challenges that they came up with were, feeling like they don't have the metabolism that they once did, feeling like they couldn't exercise like they had once done, was something. And also, surprisingly, a lot of them mentioned mindset, just feeling like, well, this is the way it is now. I'm too old to lose weight. I don't want to change. So like mindset type of things. Those were things that came up as challenges for them. But I will tell you, the 2 biggest things, and there was a couple more that we can go into if you want. But the 2 biggest things that they found to be successful for themselves after the age of 60 to lose weight was to eat allow more fats into their diet and reduce the carbohydrates. I know. Yeah. But I've seen it over and over and over again. And it was and for many of them, it was a very mentally challenging thing for them to do. One lady said, one of the hardest things about allowing herself to change over the age of 60 was was saying that, I had to stop eating low fat everything and talk to myself and allow myself to eat. Yeah, we just, it's what we've grown up with.
It is. And once it's a mindset, once it's in your belief system, then it's very hard to knock it off its perch.
Yeah.
So that's really the secret reason why weight slowly adds on. And that's the thing about weight gain, isn't it? It's slow, quite often, usually. Yeah, hopefully. Well, hopefully it's not, but it's like a stealth problem.
Sneaks up on you.
Yeah, and you look at yourself one day and you think, oh, that wasn't there last time I looked. And when was the last time I thought about it? Well, a few months ago.
Yeah. Well, and then we tend to react. We wake up that one day, and whatever the trigger is, right? We catch a glimpse and we don't quite like what we see, or we step on a scale and we don't quite like what we see, and then we tend to be reactionary. I mean, it's just a natural thing to react to, but
right.
It's and then we will maybe tend to really try to reduce calories or things like that, and the body will, the body doesn't want that, whether it's the low blood sugar or what. So those types of reactionary things are just as hard, because now we think we're failures and things like that. It's not. It's simply that we don't understand that weight loss is a hormonally controlled thing. So if we can choose the foods that play right with our hormones, we can eat well, and we don't have to worry about the weight.
On your website, there's a photo of you when you're a teenager, I think.
My 28, maybe, flowered dress.
Now, apart from looking younger, you also seem to be quite a bit thinner. Now, when you chose to lose weight at that point in time, were you aware of not having to reduce the fat intake?
Yeah, I went to Whole Foods, but I was certainly not as high fat and low carb as I am today. That really, really took hold within the past 4 years, maybe.
Yes.
That mindset, but definitely cutting out more of the refined foods. And so, and actually, that's a great point, because I think probably a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, some people might be going, really? That could work. And you certainly can go in stages to lose weight. So if someone's watching and they've been really struggling with their weight, I teach this very simple strategy. I call it 0, 1, 2, 3 strategy. It stands for this: it's 0 sugar, 1 large salad, 2 cups of cooked non-starchy vegetables, and 3 hours before bed, stop eating. Those are 4 daily habits that you can get started on. And I kind of nickname them the 4 habits that give your body no chance but to lose weight, because you're removing the biggest diet destroyer, which is sugar, but you're replacing it with these very high volume, low calorie, nutrient dense vegetables. And if you can just fold those 4 habits into your diet, so you can eat many of the foods that you've been eating, as long as one of the top 3 ingredients isn't sugar. That's kind of my rule for no sugar.
Yes.
And you have a big salad at lunch, and then you have a couple of cups of vegetables with dinner. If you are doing that, you're filling your body up with volume and nutrients, and you're not allowing your body to go through the rapid blood sugar swings that peak, and then you crash, and then you're so hungry that you have to grab some more sugar, right?
Right. Pregnant women, they gain weight quite quickly, now, for obvious reasons. What is the mechanism behind that? Is that again hormones that are stipulating what the woman is craving for?
Yeah.
The volume.
Oh, I think you froze up, but well, I'm certainly not expert on pregnancy weight gain,
Yeah.
but that would not be a time that you would want to be dieting. So I think we might have lost our feed.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Oops.
All right, you there, John?
Yes, hello. I think now China's woken up and they're all using the bandwidth. Can you hear me? Hello.
All right, so maybe I can just carry on here a little bit.
I can. Yeah.
So I was telling John about the fact that you can start with 0, 1, 2, 3, and then you can just simply go into cutting out, refined type of carbohydrates. Eat full whole carbohydrates, and work from there. And whole foods, whole fats. So these would be things like avocados, nuts, seeds, fruit. Whole meats, fish, cheeses, and dairy, if you're able to handle those. And then from there, you can work on changing the ratios of what you're eating, lowering the carbohydrates and increasing the fats.
So to a weight loss program for lasting results, just to summarize what you've said, it's not reducing the fats, but it's reducing sugar, reducing carbohydrates.
Yep.
And that reduces, sorry.
Yeah, so that's those are two of the keys.
Yes.
Reduce your carbohydrates. So if you're a woman over 50 and in menopause, keeping the carbohydrates low, especially the refined carbohydrates, will certainly help that keep that hormone insulin, that fat storing hormone insulin, under control. If you do that, you'll be hungry, right? So you need to replace it with something, and you want to replace it with healthy fats. Healthy fats are not only very hunger satiating, they also do not cause much of a reaction at all of insulin, that fat storing hormone, right? So eating them is not going to be, feeding the fat cells, so to speak.
Okay, I think
long-lasting weight loss and really getting control over this. I would add one more thing. When I was talking about the 0, 1, 2, 3 strategy, the 3 was stop eating 3 hours before bed.
Yes.
There's a lot of research now on narrowing or making shorter the amount of hours that the reason it works, it's often referred to as intermittent fasting. A more technically correct term would be time restricted eating, but either way you look at it, it basically is just breaking your day into a window of where you eat and a window where you are not eating. So by stopping eating 3 hours before bed, and then waiting a little bit longer in the morning to eat breakfast, you give yourself a longer period of not eating, and that's going to keep that hormone insulin low as well. So you're giving your body time every day to be able to lose fat.
Right. When people choose to lose weight, quite often they have a goal weight to achieve. Mm-hmm. Is there a good way of thinking? And if it is, what weight do you choose? Do you go by the charts, your height and body shape?
Yeah, so they can certainly help you narrow it down. But a lot of times it's really a preference, and it's going to be unique for each person. And weight, it's going to be dependent on your body structure as well. So if you carry a lot of your weight is just naturally going to be a little bit higher than someone else's. So there's no right weight when you're 58 years old. There's no right weight when you can't go by strict things like that. But I think most of us have had that time in our lives where we felt really good at this weight. So really, honestly, when you're looking at picking a goal weight, that is perfectly okay to use a parameter like that.
Right, right. So it's really just knowing yourself, knowing when you're comfortable with your weight before, and going for that same weight again. That makes sense, doesn't it? Because that's your body. But then again, when you're older, you may have less muscle mass.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I guess you've got to take that into account as well.
You do. But really, for somebody else to tell you that, they can help you get into the range, but it really comes down to where you're comfortable.
Right. Now we're going to talk about addiction, sugar addiction.
Yeah.
How do we break at that? That's got to be the hardest thing in the world to break.
Yeah. I'll tell you, John, one of the things I like to say is that I was addicted to sugar, and I have the cavities to prove it. I would daydream about sugar. I would, when I was in my, teens, 20s, it was a real problem. I would wake up with it on my mind in the morning. I would go to bed with it at night. I don't have that anymore. And, a lot of people that, I work with, they don't have that obsession anymore. So how do you break free from that?
Yes.
Well, it's not, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's easy. But what you do is that what I like to say is make sure that you're adding as you subtract. So a lot of people, we get disgusted with ourselves and we want to react, right? And so we just say, I'm never eating sugar again. That's fine. But we tend to take out the sugar, and then we're like, well, now what do I eat? And so we don't replace it with anything, and we end up just kind of, starving ourselves. We don't,
Yes.
it's like, well, maybe I'll just eat nothing. Well, that seems like a good idea, right? Well, that will backfire. So what we want to do is add as we're subtracting. So the high volume foods like the salad and the vegetables, those are good things to add into the diet. They're going to take a long time in your digestive tract, so that's going to keep hunger from coming on. Healthy fats are wonderful for hunger satiation. They will keep hunger and cravings away. And when you get off of sugar and you start to have these healthy fats, when you have these more the salads and the vegetables in your diet, what you're doing for yourself is that you're keeping your blood sugar level at a nice stable level.
Yes.
And that cuts down on the times where you get that low sugar crash. Those are those times where you just feel like, I have to eat something now, right? And what do you want? You don't want, celery or something like that. You want, something high in it, like a cookies, cakes, or candies, right? The 3 C's.
Yeah. Vitamins.
Yeah. So those are two factors that it's really important when you decide I'm going to give up sugar. Make sure you're getting lots of volume in your diet, which is going to come from vegetables as your primary, and you add healthy fats. When you do those two things, you can wean yourself off of sugar.
Yes.
And get through a couple of days, and it will get easier and easier for you. But you do have to go through that. You have to go through that little withdrawal period. And I was going to say I can't sugarcoat that, but that wouldn't be.
Yes, there is that. You do have to travel down that path, and it's hard. It is hard.
Yeah, it's an addictive. You were talking about sugar addiction. That's a very good term. It is an addictive substance, and you will go through withdrawal when you stop eating it. And people will. This can fatigue for sure. Lots of very extreme cravings for a couple of days, and just a general ill feeling. This is why I call it the sugar trap, because if you get off of sugar and you've been eating a lot of it, you will feel pretty bad for a couple of days.
Yes.
The way to feel better instantly, eat some sugar. So it's like this trap, right? That's that addictive side of it. You have to you have to stay your course. And the way you stay your course is volume, good healthy fats, those types of things.
Yes, yes. Why? Now, this is a question for all the guys watching, and I'm sure lots of ladies as well. Why is beer so fattening? Something which is so nutritious. It's got all the essential macro and micronutrients that we need to survive. You can survive on beer alone.
Yeah. So let me ask you, why do you say it's fattening?
Well, there's most people that go to the bar and drink beer, they get a beer belly.
Yeah. So, it's funny. And the reason I asked that, I've done some deep dives into alcohol and weight loss.
Yes.
And I will tell you, John, many of them are showing that moderate, now, and we have to define what moderate means. Alcohol consumption is not, did not show weight gain in these studies. Now we're talking moderate. So what does moderate mean?
That means about 4 liters or less, doesn't it? Or gallon or less per day.
Okay, so you're going to talk liters, so I won't be able to mention it. So I'll talk U.S. terms here, but
gallons, a gallon a day.
No, well, a gallon. Okay, so but then excessive, and I still have to excessive. Then obviously was causing weight gain, but it was surprising the amount of research that I went through that was showing that moderate alcohol intake was not causing weight gain. So we're talking about gosh, I don't have it right in front of me, but it was like if we're talking beer, wine, and spirits.
Yes.
So beer, I believe it was when they were talking about moderate. Now each study would have a little bit of a different definition, but we would be talking about like two beers for a woman and 3 for a man, like a 12-ounce beer or whatever.
Okay.
would be considered moderate. Anything above that, then we're teetering. And of course, we're going to have to consider how big the woman or man is. Wine, I believe, was a 4-ounce glass of wine.
Okay.
And maybe for a male, it was higher than that. And spirits, I'm sure it was probably in an ounce or something like that. So we're talking maybe, with the higher alcohol content, we're talking about a drink a day. Maybe beer you could maybe get away with 2, but
okay.
I know it was surprising. So I mean, because obviously we would think, oh yeah, that's going to cause you to gain weight. That'll cause, it's a no-brainer. But it wasn't across the board.
So it's more probably the fact that you're sitting down to drink the beer and talk to your friends about politics and more and other important issues, rather than out there exercising, moving.
Yeah, well, so we have some habits that go along with drinking, right? So if you're at a bar and you're having nachos every time that you're having,
right.
So,
are they the sneaky culprits? Really?
Yeah.
And the salted peanuts, I suppose you're going to tell me there.
Yeah. So and also we have to talk about lowering inhibitions when we drink alcohol too. So it's not so what I'm saying is that the research does not show that the alcohol, like just drinking the alcohol itself in moderation, contributed substantially to weight gain. But we've got, what do we eat when we're drinking, and we also have the fact that alcohol will lower your inhibitions, which may cause you to, eat something that you maybe wouldn't have had before, or eat more or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, you've mentioned vegetables. I was wondering if you could tell us, what are the first go-to vegetables if you're wanting to lose weight, put bulk in your intestines, and make yourself so you don't feel the hunger pangs? Gives your body something to work on and doesn't add to your existing fat. It helps you lose weight.
Yeah. So there's 2 main categories of vegetables, non-starchy vegetables and starchy vegetables.
Okay.
So we want to go with the non-starchy vegetables.
Okay.
They are going to be one way to think of it, and this isn't maybe a this has some exceptions, but the vegetables that tend to be harvested in the fall, so they've stayed on the vine for longer or whatever, they create more starch in them. So they're going to be starchier vegetables. So we're talking about like butternut squash. We can put potatoes in there.
So chips are out.
Yeah, chips are out. Corn is a starchy vegetable. So those types of vegetables are not going to help us.
Okay.
If we have a weight problem, they're not going to be beneficial to us. What we want to do is pick the ones that are your non-starchy vegetables. One way to think of them, I like to think of is if you put it on a salad, there's a good chance it's a non-starchy vegetable. So we have like our lettuce, right? And then we've got cucumbers. We can throw tomatoes in there. Technically, they're a fruit, right? But we can throw them in there. And spinach, broccoli, cauliflower. Those types of vegetables are non-starchy. So those are going to be your better choices.
Great. Are there any other mistakes that we haven't covered during our conversation? And people...
Probably.
Like, do you sorry. Oh, well, do you see a common mistake that people make when they're dieting, apart from just eating less and trying to grunt their way through their diet?
There's certainly a lot of things, and a lot of things are some are one thing I'm thinking of is falling for food manufacturers' labels. They can put things on labels like made with fresh apples, but then when you look at it, it's basically nothing much better than a potato chip because it's been cut to the thinnest it can be. It's fried in bad vegetable oils, which are fat that I don't recommend. Vegetable oils. And it's got a lot of preservatives and things like this. So one of our biggest hurdles to get over is not paying attention to what's on the front of the package and all the pretty stuff, and turn it over and look at the nutrients. Is sugar one of those top 3 ingredients? Then that's got to go back on the shelf, for instance.
I noticed that when I do look at the ingredients, I make this mistake, Becky. I do look at the label. It's either high in sugar, or if they say it's low in sugar, it is high in fat. Not maybe, it is high in fat, and vice versa. It's never low in both. It's startling.
I mean that seems to be true. But if you think about it, and I don't know if this is the whole story, but both of them add a lot of flavor, right? So if you fat is a very flavorful nutrient. So is sugar. So we can put one in the food item or the other and still have a very palatable foods.
Yeah. You mentioned bad oils. Can you tell us some, please? Tell us which ones you definitely avoid.
Yeah. So this is a topic that could probably fill up an entire talk, but vegetable oils are very inflammatory in our body, and they are not very stable oils. So we're talking about we have you can break oils down into polyunsaturated, monounsaturated, and saturated, right? The more saturated a oil is, the more heat tolerant it is. So it's actually better for cooking. But what we have done is we've taken vegetable oils, which are mostly polyunsaturated oils, and we use them for cooking. We use them in fast food fryers. We use them at home. So vegetable oils are vegetable oil, soybean oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil. These are these are mainly polyunsaturated fats,
Right.
oils that through their processing, they've been processed with high heat to extract them. And so they've already changed to a more inflammatory fat even before, we start to cook with them.
Right. And would olive oil be grouped in that?
Yeah, so olive oil is mostly monounsaturated.
Yeah.
And I will say personally, I don't use it for cooking. What I will use for cooking more is avocado oil, because it is just a little bit more heat stable than olive oil. And olive oil varies quite a bit in its quality. You really have to look hard for a good quality
Yeah.
olive oil. So I do like olive oil for non-cooking purposes, like vegetable making salad dressing, for instance.
Right.
But that would be more.
If you have arteriosclerosis, if you've got a thickening of the blood vessel walls through a plaque buildup, would a diet help reduce that, reducing your body fat?
Well, diet will certainly improve cardiovascular markers.
Yes.
Now, if you have the plaque and it's well established, will it be reversed solely by diet? It's, that's going to be a little bit more of a challenge, but that has a the plaquing of the arteries has so much to do with diet.
Okay, so what you're saying is reduce the amount of buildup that continues if you improve your diet and improve your oils.
Yeah, that would be a good way to say it. You can suppress the growth of the plaque for sure.
Right.
Yeah, reversing it. I've seen some things on doing that, but that's I would look at stabilizing it.
Right. We haven't talked much about exercise in the summer, and exercise, of course, is a big part in weight loss and general body health. Do you have any advice on people that haven't exercised for a long time and wish to dip their toe into the water, so to speak, figuratively speaking, and start becoming fitter? How would you suggest people do this?
Yeah, it's a great goal, and exercise is wonderful for your body. So when I start with working with somebody, what you first have to look at is what is your overall goal. So is this person been overweight, and that's really what they want? They want to lose weight. I would start that person, surprisingly, on much lighter exercise. And here's the reason. If you jump right into exercise, it will increase your appetite, and that will make it very challenging for you to focus on both aspects at the same time.
Right.
What I would like to do with somebody is, in that situation, is get them started, give them just a month of lighter exercise, and really that's nothing more than increasing physical activity.
Okay.
So moving more, and take that time and really get the diet under control. And at that time, you feel more like moving, and you're a little bit lighter. You have the diet under control, and it's a little bit more on autopilot. Now you can start to move into exercise, and I will tell you, some resistance exercise is absolutely, in my book, the best way to go, adding some resistance, weightlifting, weight training, that type of thing.
I guess that would add to your body muscle mass.
Absolutely.
And the muscles then can raise your resting energy requirements.
You got it. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes good sense.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting close to the end of the summer. Would you like to close by giving a one sentence or less? That's the challenge, the summer challenge for today. Advice for people that have, until viewing the summer, thought, well, dieting is too much like hard work and it's not fun. What can they do to start?
So for if somebody says that dieting is no fun, I don't want to, but I want to lose weight.
Well, that's the thing. Dieting isn't fun, is it? Or is it?
It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be horrible. I will tell you, if you're choosing the right foods, you can. Dieting does not have to be horrible. Is that a sentence?
That is a sentence. Yes, but there was a bit of a comma in there, but it's a bit of a compound sentence. But we accept those on a Thursday in China. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Oh, just one thing I wanted to ask you: when you're watching TV and you've got your snack bowl beside you.
My what?
Your snack bowl beside you while you're watching TV. That's a bad idea, right? Because you're an autopilot. If you have
snack bowl. Okay.
But yeah, sorry. It's it must be the connection.
Oh, yes.
It can't be my accent. What would you rather have inside that snack bowl to replace the popcorn and peanuts and other things?
Well, I'm gonna have to keep to my rule 3 hours before bed stop. Yeah. There's not a whole lot that you can choose at that time of night.
No, I almost got you there. I almost got you.
You're gonna end on that, huh?
No, you're pretty sharp. You're pretty sharp. You realise I was cornering you there. That's fantastic. Well, thanks so much for coming on the channel. It was fun having you on. We've learned so much. It's really surprising for me to hear that fat and oils, good oils, is advantageous for losing weight. And what you're saying about stopping those peaks in the insulin, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Sometimes you have to just prove it to yourself. It is a hard thing to accept because we've had so many our lifetime. Yeah. And
people would have been going through these Weight Watchers points system where you just got it's only numbers. It's simplified. It's dumbed down, but the bigger picture is not taken into account. Our body's ability to use what's being consumed.
That is. I wish that would have been my last sentence. That was a perfect final sentence. Yeah.
There was a quote from Dr. Becky Gillaspy, which is just about the same. Thank you so much for coming onto the show. It has been real fun. You have a great evening. I hope you haven't eaten because you're going to. It's now.
Yeah. Now I live by my rules.
Good on you. Fantastic. Okay. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thanks so much, John. All right. You have a good day.
Will do. Bye-bye.
Bye.